Hello. Today, you will hear a story about a man's revenge. My life has never been filled with any unusual moments. Everything was calm and measured. I had a prestigious job. Every day was on schedule. Morning run, shower, work, nothing special. I haven't had much luck in relationships, but everything changed when Alexander appeared in my life. It was very easy for a person whose life is the same almost every day to notice a spectacular girl who from the first moment made her think about her. It was a beautiful sunny morning. I started my run as usual. And Alexander ran to meet me. We exchanged glances and smiled at each other. Of course, I didn't run after her like a maniac. At first, it was just nice to meet her every morning for a run. Later, however, we got to know each other better. We started a cheerful, unobtrusive conversation, which grew into a first date. And then my life became much brighter, and I thanked fate for meeting Alexandra. After some time, Alexander moved in with me. Our habits were similar in many ways, so living together did not cause any discomfort. I never even thought of being jealous of Alexandra. She did not give any reason, but soon all this changed. Once Alexander came to work with me. I was without a car at the time and asked her to come pick me up. My spectacular girlfriend was immediately noticed by my director. In the future, he repeatedly expressed his admiration for her, how lucky I was and stuff like that. At first, I was pleased, but then I began to notice too unhealthy interest in Alexandra. The director began to invite us to some events more. He constantly circled around Alexander. But even more, what confused me was that my girlfriend flirted with him reciprocated. I did not want to focus on this at first, so as not to seem jealous. But nevertheless, over time, he began to slowly hint to her that I didn't like their communication at all. Alexander laughed in response, asked him to stop thinking about it because there was nothing between them and there could not be. Only I am the main character in her life. I sincerely believed her, reassuring myself that I make up my own mind and then just suffer. Next week, I was supposed to have a very important deal with partners. I led this project personally since my director was still such a lazy person. He had only one skill: good at delegating his duties to others. Yes. I did not complain because I liked my work and I gained experience. On Monday, I arrived early to work in order to have time to complete all the tasks in a day. In the office, he began to rummage through his desk and could not find the necessary document in any way. I called the director. He did not pick up the phone. Then he called back talking with shortness of breath as if he had run a marathon. I also joked with a smile saying that he doesn't take care of himself in pursuit of profit. But he clearly did not care about my jokes. He quickly asked what I needed. I asked for documents. The director asked me to come into his office. They should be on his desk. I hurriedly ran to the director and began sorting through stacks of documents. I accidentally hit the computer keyboard. It was not turned off and the screen lit up. I already wanted to turn it off, but suddenly I noticed a player that was not closed on which there was a video on pause. I looked closer and saw my Alexandra. With a shaking hand, I turned on the video and was just confused. In the video, she had sex right at our house with the director. I was so dumbfounded that I couldn't believe I was frozen in place, but it was her, and it all happened at our house. My heartbeat accelerated, sweat began to hail. I became very ill. There was not enough air. I sat in the director's chair and for about 10 minutes just looked at my feet. Having recovered a little, I continued to dig in the computer and found a folder where there were at least a dozen of these videos with Alexandra. This pervert filmed everything. I wanted to call both Alexandra and him, screaming and threatening. But I tried to calm down because I understood that in this way I would not achieve anything. After some more digging in the computer, I found an application with remote access to cameras and found the password for access since the director was not too careful. Just so as not to forget the password, he wrote it down in a file and saved it in the folder with all the videos. I went to this application and saw this betrayal live. The heavy-breathing bastard I just talked to had my girlfriend at my house. I had only one desire: to come home and kill them on the spot. But common sense won. I decided to take revenge in a different way. And in my head, the puzzles of my revenge began to take shape, which should destroy them. For my plan to succeed, I needed to pretend that I didn't know anything, to act as if nothing had happened. I understood that I could not talk coolly with the director or with this traitor, at least for now, so I decided to leave for a week, supposedly to prepare the foundation for concluding an agreement with a partner. The director never really delved into the details of my work. I was really very good at it, and he knew it. And for him, the main thing is the result, and what and how I do was not particularly interesting to him. And Alexander will not suspect anything either, since I sometimes went on such business trips. I had to force myself not to deal with this here and now, but the plan was already working out in my head, and I tried my best to isolate my feelings. I arrived home, looked with disgust at the bed, which was already made. Alexander greeted me with a smile as if nothing had happened. I looked into her eyes, and the more she smiled, the more I wanted to strangle her. Alexander asked me what happened, but I pushed everything into a lot of work. As a result, he quickly packed his things and left. After checking into a motel room, I decided to try to relax a little by opening a bottle of whiskey I had saved up in advance. Alcohol could not overcome the surge of adrenaline in me for a long time. I drank it like water, thinking about revenge. After a little sleep, I woke up early in the morning and decided to take action. All those remarks of the director about the higher management surfaced in my head. He mentioned them with irritable hatred every time. He wanted their power. I wanted to be not just a director, but also get a share of the co-owner of the company. I decided to play on these greedy ambitions, and Alexandra was also interested in money. I tried to give her expensive gifts to take her on holiday abroad without betraying her weakness for luxury. But now I have opened my eyes to everything that is happening. Alexander had a larger target in her field of vision, and she carefully processed the target across the bed. Just a cynical creature who will also get his own. Opening my laptop, I set up remote access to the camera as I saved my password and could record a video of everything that was happening in my bedroom. It was painful and disgusting to see her bed again, where so many pleasant nights had been spent with her. It occurred to me that, judging by the number of videos taken, this bastard enjoyed sleeping with other people's women right in the owner's house. Kind of a twisted role-playing game. I opened access to the cameras directly on my phone. A little later, I cleaned myself up and went to the office. Senior management held closed meetings in the office where they discussed important areas in the development of the company. For such meetings, they needed presentations from the director where the results of the work done and new proposals for development were collected. My director, as I have already mentioned, did not have a great desire to work. And I have been preparing all these presentations for a long time, and the director simply showed all this on his own behalf. The upcoming presentation should definitely open the eyes of everyone. I had to wait for the director to visit Alexander again when I was at work. I returned home. I looked at Alexander just like a stranger. In her eyes, I did not see any regret or even a drop of guilt. She confidently played her role of a caring girl. Only now, her every touch felt like the touch of a toxic plant that was poisoning me. At work, the director also did not show any signs, clapped me on the shoulder and always hurried me with the conclusion of a new deal. I have never experienced so much anger and hatred as I do these days. I could not even imagine how cynical people are around me and who absolutely do not care about me, but it did not last long. The meeting of the owners of the company was to take place the following Tuesday. The director had his own plans for that day, and he asked me to prepare a presentation. The director was repeatedly praised for my own work, that he knew how to find valuable personnel, and I already managed to gain respect among the top management. So I repeatedly held such presentations covering up my unlucky director. On the day of the meeting, I had a lot of work and the director knew this, so he already went to my house. On the phone, I saw that they were already in my bed. I quickly got up and went to my house. Upon arrival, I burst into the bedroom where frightened lovers fled like frightened cats in the corners. Alexander, hiding behind a sheet in tears, began to shout at me what I was doing here. The director kept asking me to calm down so that I would not do anything stupid. I started screaming too. But here, as I thought, the conversation quickly turned into threats and insults to me. The two-faced girl with Charity began to express what an entity I am and not at all a man. And the director began to threaten with dismissal, telling me that I could not find work anywhere else, that if it were not for him, then I would not have achieved anything. I asked him, so this is how you decided to thank me for all the work that I did instead of you, covered you. You say that without you, I would not have achieved anything. But in fact it is you, a miserable entity who will never be on the board of directors. And then the director suffered. He began to speak with disdain and in about the higher leadership, that number one was a hindrance to him there, that cowardly rats were sitting there whom he could easily intimidate and find compromising evidence at work in order to blackmail if necessary and simply knock money out of them. Showing his real face, the director had no idea that his speech had been listening to the leadership for a long time. Before starting the presentation, I connected the broadcast to a projector on the wall in the office. And at the moment of the director's most stormy and furious statements, he quietly turned on this broadcast via remote access on the phone. The director, choking with hatred, spattered with saliva, but heard a phone call and frighteningly picked up the phone. It was a guide that told him something he did not expect at all. His face changed abruptly and turned pale. I told him, and this beauty, to wave to the camera. I showed the director in my hand the remote control on the phone and advised Alexandra to look for a job in her vocation now, since the video of their perversion had already been sent as a resumed to so many companies. After I said not to linger in my house, otherwise, in 10 minutes, I would call the police and slam the door. After the revenge scene, I quickly returned to the office where the management was still waiting for me. They were not bored as they were vigorously discussing what had happened. I did show a real presentation prepared in advance. They asked me if I did all this myself all this time. In response, I nodded my head without delay. After this incident, the director was thrown out of the company. I no longer saw Alexander. The remains of her things, which she did not have time to pick up that day, I gladly collected and threw into the trash can. As for me, the place of the director became mine, and a couple of years later I was already on the main board of directors. Dear listeners, please like and subscribe to our channel.